PCC kids! Thanks for joining me today. We are going to be reading a really crazy story. In fact, it's called Tubby the Slug's Crazy Christmas Adventure. Tubby wasn't your average slug. He learned how to ride a bike with no legs. He was faster than a turtle. He could make 11 touchdowns in 3.5 minutes in a football game. Tubby was stronger than a stick, and he could say the alphabet forward and backwards. He always had the right answers in school, and unlike snails, he didn't need a shell because Tubby was too cool. And he knew it. Every time he would pass by Larry, Barry, and Terry Snail, Tubbs would slick back his eyeballs one at a time and say, "I bet you wish you were as cool as me. Too bad you're not." Then he would speed away, leaving Larry, Barry, and Terry covered in slime. "He's awesome!" exclaimed Larry. "The coolest!" screamed Barry. "I wish I could be a slug like Tubby," cried Terry. And although the snails thought Tubby was cool, they all wished he was not so proud and unkind. Oozing his way around the block, Tubby found a nice plant to munch. He admired the plant for its lovely green leaves and thought to himself, "It may be a lovely plant, but compared to me, it's ugly. I'm so cool." As Tubby began to munch, he noticed a young girl across the room. No one special, just an average human being. Once again, Tubby chuckled to himself, thinking about how cool he was compared to everyone else. Tubby took another large bite of leaf when all of a sudden a burst of light appeared in front of him. As he realized it wasn't just light, but an angel, Tubby almost choked on his giant mouthful of leaves. Words thundered from the angel's mouth. As he spoke, "Do not be afraid, Mary, for you have found favor with God. And behold, you will conceive in your womb and bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus. He will be great and will be called the Son of the Most High, and the Lord God will give him the throne of his father David. And he will reign over the house of Jacob forever, and of his kingdom there will be no end." When Tubbs heard this, his eyeballs shot up so fast they almost popped off of his head. A king would rule forever is coming, and Tubbs and this lady were the first ones to know. That is when a rather slimy idea squirmed its way into his brain. Maybe I heard it first because I'm the coolest creature to ever live. God must think I'm better than everyone else. That must be why I was chosen to hear this message, so I can share it with others. All of them will have to believe me because I'm so cool. But Tubby had it all wrong. He had so much to learn. On his way home, Tubby nearly gushed out slime with excitement. Larry, Barry, and Terry Snail would be the first ones to hear the message. Tubby sped his way to the snails and told them all about the angel and how Jesus was coming and how he, Tubby, was especially chosen to spread the word because of his coolness. Tubby slicked back his eyeballs with a proud smile and awaited their amazement. Giggled Larry. Laughed Barry. "Tubby, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard," howled Terry. Tubby stared with his mouth wide open. How could they not believe him? Tubby was the coolest. "You must not be cool enough to understand," he grumbled. He took off, leaving the snails covered in slime. Nothing in the whole world made Tubby feel better than a cup of hot cocoa with whipped cream right before a hefty nap. After being completely ignored by his only friends, Larry, Barry, and Terry Snail, Tubby really needed a nap and maybe a little hot cocoa with a lot of whipped cream. Oozing his way around a quiet corner, his eyeballs hung low with exhaustion. and disappointment. With his eyeballs hanging down, Tubby wasn't really paying attention to where he was going. So he ran right into a giant, smelly man foot. "Ew!" screamed Tubby. "That guy got his toes in my slime." "Ugh!" said the man. "That slug got its slime on my toes." "Who does that guy think he is?" Tubby grumbled as he angrily flopped his slimy self down in a comfy corner just before sucking in his eyeballs to fall asleep. Then he began to talk to God, like he did every time he was about to go to sleep. "God, today was a big bummer, and I'm so upset. Sure, I got to hear your angel's message about the great king that is coming, and I guess that's pretty cool. But the snails wouldn't listen to me, even though I'm the slickest slug around. Why would you let this happen? All I want is for everyone to know how amazing I am." So Tubby fell asleep with an ungrateful heart. God heard Tubby's prayer just as he hears all of our prayers. Tubby's ungrateful words made God sad because he had allowed Tubbs to be a part of the greatest thing to ever happen on Earth. And all Tubby wanted was to be cool. But God wasn't about to give up on Tubby. No, not at all. He still had the coolest adventures waiting for Tubby. That night, as Tubby's snores grew louder than a freight train, he had the strangest of dreams. An angel, just like the one who told Mary and Tubby the exciting news about Jesus, was standing in front of him. The angel looked straight at the man Tubbs had seen before and said, "Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary as your wife, for that which is conceived in her is from the Holy Spirit. And she will bear a son, and you shall call him Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins." That is when Tubby snored so loudly he woke himself up and fell out of bed. Opening his eyes, Tubbs saw the man who had so rudely put his toes in Tubby's slime. But looking again, Tubby realized that this was the man in his dream. This was Joseph, the man who was supposed to take Mary as his wife, since she was going to give birth to Jesus. Tubby got out of bed, and Joseph got up as well. Tubby hoped that Joseph knew what he was supposed to do. Tubby knew Joseph probably didn't speak slug, so it would be hard to explain the dream without words. But to Tubby's surprise, Joseph said, "Okay, God, I'm going to get Mary and follow your plan, and even though it might seem crazy, I'm going to trust you." "Sweet!" yelled Tubby. "He knows! Joseph must have seen the angel as well." Tubby was so excited he danced with joy. I don't know if you've ever seen a slug dance, but they're very talented little dancers. He danced his eyes from left to right and almost didn't realize Joseph was walking out the door. Tubby sped over to Joseph and stuck himself to the bottom of Joseph's shoe, no longer caring if Joseph's toes touched his slime. Tubby now knew he was meant to be a part of this incredible mission alongside Joseph and Mary, and for only a moment he forgot about being cool and thanked God for letting him hear the amazing news. Jesus was coming, and Tubby couldn't wait. Have you ever walked in the desert? Because let me tell you, it is not fun. Sand gets up your nose, and you get so sweaty and smelly, and if you're a slug like Tubby, all of your slime dries up until you look like a raisin. And everybody knows that looking like a raisin is so not cool. Since Tubby was on a long journey with Mary and Joseph, he was looking especially raisin-like. So at this point, you could probably imagine how grumpy Tubby was, since all he really cared about was how cool he was and making sure everyone knew it. Even though Tubby had used every last drop of energy, he kept going on and going on, grinning from eyeball to eyeball because Tubby was holding the greatest news of all time. Jesus the King was coming! As excited as Tubby was, he needed water. If he waited any longer, he might turn into an actual raisin. Just before he shriveled into a crumb, Tubby saw it, a small puddle of water. Normally, he would have slimed his way over to the puddle of water, but he didn't have any slime left. So he flopped himself into the cool puddle, and instantly Tubby felt like his cool, slimy self again. He slicked his eyeballs back one at a time, looked up toward the sun, and realized his snail friends were right in front of him. Tubby's face lit up. This was his chance. He could get his message in these snails' uncool heads. Larry, Barry, Terry! Ugh, groaned Larry. Oh, phooey gooey, mumbled Barry. So Terry piped up, Tubby, you better not tell us that crazy story again about Mary and the king that's coming and the angel that told you all of that. You still look cool, but I think you slicked your eyeballs back one too many times. Tubby's heart sank. He wasn't crazy. Jesus was coming. Why didn't his friends understand? After all, he was the slickest slug around. Everyone should always listen to him, not send him away like some nasty booger. But Tubby held back his tears and sped away to catch up with Joseph and Mary. Not too long after, they came to a small town called something like Bet on Him, or maybe it was Beth the Gem, or it was Beef and Ham? No. It was Bethlehem. Anyway, it was a small town. Nothing exciting could ever happen here. Except for some reason, that day, everyone in the whole country seemed to be there. Apparently, in those days, a decree went out from Caesar Augustus that all the world should be registered. This was the first registration when Quirinius, the governor of Syria, and all went to be registered, each to his own town. This meant all the men had to go to the town so they could be counted. Joseph had to go to Bethlehem, the city of David, because Joseph's great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandfather was King David. Tubby was getting sleepy, and he could tell there was something strange going on with Mary. Maybe, just maybe, Jesus was about to be here. Tubby's eyes shot up in excitement. They began walking toward the inn where they could stay for the night. But when they got there, all the rooms were full. What? Squealed Tubby. You can't send us away. His heart filled with anger and then sadness as he remembered that he too had been turned away by his snail friends. Jesus needed a place to be born, but they didn't want him. And Tubby, the slickest slug around, had friends who didn't want him either. Right then and there, Tubby thought the most amazing thing. It doesn't matter if everyone thinks I'm crazy, and it doesn't matter if there's no room in the inn. Jesus is still coming, and that's what really matters. All right, kids, thanks for joining me for the first part of Tubby's crazy Christmas adventure. Stay tuned for next week when we finish the story. Bye!